When we are in our own power, we create our universe. We are in the driver's seat. We are not driven anymore. So the first thing, yes, as you said, is to check on the patterns. I let my clients look at the patterns with the two words. What's always happening in your life? What can I never ever have? Always and never ever lead to our subconscious beliefs. And then going into from now on, I allow myself to have this from now on, and give myself permission to have that. Now and allow, now and permission opens the door to the new.
Welcome to the Daily Soul Bytes Show. I am your host, Bola Abimbola, frequency alchemist, intuitive life coach, and energy practitioner. Daily Soul Bytes Show, as you know, is where we bring guest authors, coaches, and entrepreneurs in the fields of spirituality, psychology, and leadership, sharing their insights for the expansion of collective consciousness. And today we have a very special guest all the way from Arkansas, Claudia Granger. Welcome to the show, Claudia.
Thank you so much, Bola, for having me. I am looking forward to our exchange. I can't wait. The world is so wide. We're an ocean apart, and now we can talk like this. Isn't that fantastic? I love it.
Yes, it is. I love it as well. Thank you, Claudia. Let me read your bio before we start.
Thank you.
Claudia Granger is an award-winning transformation coach, a mentor, and psychic medium with 40 years plus of experience guiding people to live soul-aligned, purpose-driven lives. From Germany to Sedona and now Mount Ida, she empowers clients through Alchemized Coaching, heart and soul attunements, and psychic readings, as well as development programs. She's also been featured on a number of TV shows, and she helps others release blockages, awaken their gifts, and remember who they truly are. I love that. Now we already have so much in common. You know, this is really my work also, you know, so I'm really pleased to have you here. Tell us a bit about your background, Claudia, how you got to this place, the stepping stones that has led you here, so that our audience can become a lot more familiar with you.
Well, I'm one of the few who came to this world consciously. That means I remember when I made the decision to come here, to choose my parents, choose to be in a female body, where to be born in Germany, and all these circumstances. And I remember really clearly how I made the choice and why. Why? To make people's lives easier on this path, because on this earth it is so difficult in our condensed, confined world of duality of the good and the bad, this artificially good and bad, to deal with these difficulties. We forget ourselves. We forget that we are this unlimited being, this vast beingness, this uniform entity which is always connected to source, and we forget all that when we dim down. And I also dimmed down in the beginning, meaning dimming down of not remembering everything. I remembered quite a bit, but I didn't really remember the vastness of existence, the multidimensionality of things.
Are you looking for AAA grade jewelry or gemstones? Utter Spirit are those we will recommend. They actually do really wonderful jewelry. They have gifted me really nice lapis lazuli, which is really good for connecting with universal wisdom. And also this shungite beads, which come from Russia, and they're really rare because a lot of the times you get shungite beads which affect your skin, and these beads have been really nice. My son also loves them, and Utter Spirit, they give back to nature as well, so that is really nice that they are contributing to the environment. And they also send this intention cards. They're quite nice. This shungite card says, I cleanse myself from harmful energies. And the lapis lazuli card says I am connected to the infinite wisdom of the universe. So there's information that goes with it, as well as them, producing really good quality jewelry. So I will recommend to connect with Otter Spirit, and the code will be going with this video. So check them out.
So I made it my vision to help people with their remembrance, help people with their ascension process, which is really acute right now. As of 2020 into 2030, we are way into this process of alignment with our soul, and have to integrate that now on a higher dimensional basis, and also in our everyday grind, in our everyday life. So to my background, when I came down and remembered all this, so I was the odd duck in the family, and I was the odd duck in my environment. Definitely was not very easy to see through dimensions at the same time, having to focus on school. And everyday life functions. I always have seen beings, extraterrestrial beings, as well as ghostly beings, as well as guides. And one could think this is easy. Oh, she had it easy. No, it wasn't so easy when nobody around you does it, and you see things other people don't see, and you don't remember that they do not see these things. So over time, I condensed down, meaning I become more blinkered, like not focused on all the divine around me, but more focused on the daily grind. And that's why it is so to my heart and desire that I help people to go beyond that grind now and see again the bigger picture and see the beauty in the bigger picture. So I come full swing now from knowing all there is and consciously going down into the focus of three-dimensional reality, and now going back consciously into the all alignment of oneness consciousness, that we are all in this together, that we all can feel each other, see each other, and know that we are ultimately one being from source. And that's what I want to help people to look beyond their daily frame of limited existence, to see the bigger picture again, to feel the bigger picture, to feel the unlimited love of source in their lives, in their daily lives. Sorry, it was so long. I didn't plan on talking so long about that. But that's what I had to experience. And there are many wonderful stories of alignment, and everyone has these miracles of alignment in their stories, but sometimes we don't acknowledge them. Sometimes we do not celebrate them.
Thank you. Thank you, Claudia. I love it when you said you remembered some things. And I'm curious about those things, because many of us don't. I certainly, when I was born, I had no recollection of any past lives or who I was. And it's been a journey. I'd love to know a bit more. If you tell us a bit more about, what did you remember?
Okay.
And I remember you said, you definitely had to dim things down after a while. But what did you remember? And then what did you do? Were you a teacher? What kind of career did you go down into, first of all,
Okay.
before you
All
became
right.
more?
What I remember, one of the things which the audience might find fascinating in this whole in between the waiting room, like white background, white shimmering light, I saw a lot of golden figurines. And these golden figurines were these, let's say, the soul bodies, this consciousness, pure consciousness, but more in a figurine, so that I could see, oh, this is a soul, that is a soul, and so on. And these souls had 7 faces coming out when they came close to me. And with the several faces, I could realize, oh, I know this person from this life, or I know this person from that life, because at that moment when I looked at the face, everything got downloaded back to me, all the memory from a conjoined life. And here comes a situation while I was picking all the, female body and parents and so circumstances being born in Germany. there comes a soul figurine towards me, and she looks at me, and one face, we recognize each other. She said, "Oh, you're here too, getting ready to incarnate. Look, I'm so excited. I can't wait to go back down there and have this experience." And I said, "What did you choose?" And she said, "Well, saying here is just exchanging by thought or by intention." And she said, "I'm going to be a scientist. I'm going to go to the Amazon. I'm going to get kidnapped and raped. Isn't that exciting?" I said, "Oh my God, getting kidnapped and raped. Well, I hope you remember that you chose this." And that's one of the things I have to remind sometimes my clients, that we chose a lot of these things. Some things are cause and effect, meaning we choose when we want to be a famous doctor, we need several times to be a client or a patient, because a famous doctor needs a lot of patience. Cause and effect. If you want to be super rich and being, the king of whatever, we need to have several subordinates. So when we choose one, we have to also deal with the other side. So the account has to be balanced. So that's one thing I remembered, which resonated with me through my whole life, that the hardships I chose, or the hardships which I had to face, were of my own choosing, or were a balancing act of other lifetimes. That was like a red ribbon and led through my life as a remembrance. And after coming down in my mom's womb, it was very boring. So no story to tell there. Then the delivery, then growing up, again, seeing multidimensionalities. When we were playing catch, sometimes I was stood there and just staring in a hedge, because I was seeing other dimensions. And, these are difficulties I had to tone down, because otherwise it was difficult for people to deal with me. And then I wanted to study theology. Why? Because I wanted to deal with my gifts in an official form, in an authority form, becoming a priest or something there. I could talk about God and source. But when I studied theology, I realized the priests were just a middle person between the divine and the true, person and 3D reality. And so I realized that was way too limited. I couldn't be just that middle person. I wanted to be the bridge between their remembrance of source and themselves, that they understand they are the miracle. They created, they're the weaver, the woven one. They're the dreamer and the dream at the same time. To get this inside out, outside in perception, like you're all and you're this and you're all and you're this. So after I finished my theology studies and became a priest, I really couldn't do it in this small narrative. So I decided to do additional education and did business education and become a human resources specialist for Europe in an American consultancy firm. And while I was doing that, I was doing Reiki and doing life coaching already. And that's why my long cycle of experience, I worked with managers who had burnt out syndrome. I had a school, Daskalos Internum, the inner teacher. I visited some psychic schools, but it was more a awakening of gifts, like, oh yeah, of course I can do that too. Oh yeah, I remember that. Or yes, so a lot of things which I also do with clients these days is remembering, let them remember what they are truly capable of. Because of the small frameworks, like me with theology studies, they wanted to operate me on this small little box, but I didn't fit in that box. And a lot of us don't fit in that box. We want to be in the bigger box. We need to be in the bigger box. This is the time to see the bigger box again of what we truly belong in the bigger context. So, as I said, I did a lot of on the side teaching and coaching. Loved the healing work. In Europe, I mostly did healing work, hands-on healing, hands-off healing. My guiding ones, who were always with me, taught me a lot of healing styles and coaching styles, which then later I solidified with technical, learning. But right now I'm, for example, learning all about neuroscience coaching. Always something. Brain is always fascinating. The brain is such a fascinating gateway between the realms, the higher dimensions and our 3D form. The gateway is the brain. This brain-body connection is just so fascinating. But I hope that answers your questions and what modalities and how I came about to do and be where I am now. Because after the American consultancy company, I wanted to quit and do just that, just the metaphysical. So I did. I quit. It was scary, but I was riding on my lion of power. And I gave my notice. And I had so much overtime and they didn't want to let me go. So I said, okay, I take my overtime. And that was like 4 months worth. Went to Sedona, loved it, met my first husband. He asked me, I wasn't even home, flying back home yet to Germany. He asked me, do you want to marry me? I put everything, quit my job for good and said, sure, I do. Put my house up, for rent. Brilliant spirit made my transit from Germany so easy. And that's when something is meant to be. We know it's meant to be because spirit makes it easy. So as I wanted to give up my flat, the people from across the street needed my flat because they were kicked out. And underneath was their daughter who got pregnant with their second child, so their second grandchild. They said, oh, you just move out. We take care of renovations. We took care of everything. We just want to have your flat. And then I put everything on sale. People got it all done. And here comes another little miracle story. I just love when spirit works that way. I had one item. I had one antique furniture piece, which I had remodeled with my grandfather together. And this I didn't want to give up. So I asked myself, what do I do with this piece? I want to bring it to my parent house. In that moment, the doorbell rang. You wouldn't believe it. This is a true story. This is not made up. It's 100% true. The doorbell rings. I go into the intercom and the voice says, are you Claudia Haberland? That's my original name. And I said, yes. And he said, well, I'm here. I'm Sale. I'm here to transport a piece of furniture. And I said, what? Yes, I meditated in the morning and God told me to move this piece of furniture. I mean, can you believe it? This is just crazy. So I thought, where's the hidden camera? Like the TV story, hidden camera. Where do I have bugs in my room? I just thought this. So I opened the door and I didn't want to let this person in first, but then my place was already empty except that one piece. So I let him up and he said, oh, this is what I'm supposed to move? I said, wait a second, tell me again. And he said, yes, I meditate every single morning and I ask God, what do you want me to do for you today? And I love this. I mean, what a heartfelt meditation. And God gives him answer. Every single day, there's a little job to do. He got my name, my full address. That's how clairvoyant and clairaudient he was. And he looked the address up and had the face. Now had that face to go blindly and ring on somebody else's door with a true confidence, that this was the job he was supposed to do, no questions asked. And wow, so that gave me faith that my hop over the ocean to America was a meant to be occurrence. If I wouldn't have believed it before, I believed it then that it was meant to be. And the rest is history. I moved to Sedona. I married. I moved to Sedona. I started working from day one. But then it was not healing work anymore. Spirit said, you're supposed to tell people something. And do I really want to do that? I don't want to have that responsibility to tell people what to do. They said, no, you need to tell them. We give you the information. You just relate our message. And I said, oh, really? Because, hand-on healing and just letting the divine flow into a body is one thing, but tell them this and that and the other. To me, that was really risky. Somehow it felt risky. It felt like I was taking charge of somebody else's life. And I really didn't want to do that. But they forced me to. So I didn't know anyone in Sedona. So I asked, well, how is that supposed to be? And they said, well, you need to be presented with a room. And there was one Center for New Age, and the rooms were very expensive. I said, wow, can I really do this? And I heard, just do it. So I just did it. And again, underlining the keyword faith here. I had faith. I had to have faith because it was a lot. It was about $2,000 a month for a tiny little room. That was a lot of money. It still is a lot of money. It's somebody else's mortgage, $2,000 a month. So, but I did it. I had faith. And they delivered the clients, and the rest is history. And then later, I moved a year to Hawaii, and then moved back because I loved Sedona, still love Sedona to this day. But then Spirit told me, now it's time to work with the crystal grid of the world. And that led me to Sedona, to Mount Ida in Arkansas, because now I'm situated on top of a mountain of crystal and crystalline ley lines. And that's where I'm now.
I love that. That is so fascinating. Thank you so much for sharing that journey with us. And I know what you meant about faith, having faith, because sometimes people think when you are surrendering to that higher self, to that divine source, when you are allowing yourself to be guided, life becomes boring. That is the exact opposite. It's very exciting, and you are being asked to work outside of your comfort zone every single day. And it's about how do you do that? Spirit is very thirsty for surrender and grace. And it takes our grace, it takes our willingness to hold that grace, to actually experience those things that come, that unfold, that continue to unfold. It's very exciting journey. And I experience that on a daily basis. So it's really wonderful to actually hear your experience and your journey. And I know that those who want to know more about that will connect with you and your work. But I'd love to know, Claudia, a little bit more about the modalities that you work with. How do you receive the messages that you receive, and what modalities do you work with?
Okay, first of all, I want to say thank you for your wise words, because it really resonated with me when you were saying Spirit is thirsty for this willingness to surrender and also willingness to grow. So I really like that statement very much, because it's so true. Now, in regard of modalities, I have a lot of modalities being given to me. Channeling is one, just information drop in. I teach people how to channel. Then I can teach people using tarot. Sometimes I do it to show clients like what is meant for them with pictures. Today is like, look at the divine, look at the folks upstairs, look at the connection, your own connection to the light. Again, healing, like Reiki, I love doing that, but also long distance energy work, because there is now really a distance. The distance is just perceived in our thought patterns. But once you realize that energy is limitless and thought creates instant form, and if you believe you have your client right in front of you and you can feel them, and you don't believe in the distance, you believe in the here and now and in just all the connectivity, then you can heal anyone, and the person can be anywhere in the world, and you can have access through the field, through this interconnectivity field, which we are all part of, like the matrix. We are part of this energetic matrix, and we are in it, and we are creating it at the same time. And now this concept is really difficult to understand sometimes, but that's how it is. So energy healing is one. And then you mentioned earlier transformation coaching. That means I use coaching programs where I help people to see the bigger picture, help people to see that big box I mentioned earlier, and pushing them a little bit out of their small box thinking into the big box experience. And I do it in two themes. One theme is for aligning people with their love, soul aligned love program, because we all want to feel love, but we will not resonate on the frequency of love if we don't start loving ourselves. So guide people to realize their hindering belief structures, stories they tell themselves, and I have like reprogramming, recoding tools, uh, how to get rid of blockages, inner blockages, the HUNA method, the emotional release technique, synergy therapy I learned in Germany, so many modalities, but they're mostly given through my guides. And some of them got downloaded and I had to name them. So like the HUNA method, it's like with rapid eye movement, the emotional release technique is like going deep within the subconscious. The recoding, reprogramming works with NLP techniques, neuro linguistic programming techniques. So it's an ever growing evolution of techniques. And of course, like neuroscience, but there's every day they give me new ideas about something. And every client, working with every client is always different. And that's so exciting because every person is different, has different challenges. Yes, there are certain foundational techniques, but the download is always there. If a person needs something unique or particularly created, they will deliver it through me to the client. So sometimes it's techniques I've never heard about. And then later, I hear on another side of the world, somebody has downloaded something similar and they named it XYZ. Oh, that's fascinating. We all download from the same source. So I don't know with whatever all techniques I'm actually working with because every day is a new day.
Mm, I love that. Yes, every day is definitely a new day. And I agree with you. There is no one technique that suits everybody. There are gazillion modalities, lots of different techniques, and we all need that toolbox because the techniques or the modalities that we used in a previous timeline may not apply for ourselves or for our clients. So we need to
Right.
be open. And this is why on Daily Soul Bites, we feature a range of modalities to encourage that openness, that curiosity, that opening of mind to allow that next level. And that's what my work is really about, using the resistance that we see in our day to day, because everybody is on the path they need to be. And you said something around that, Claudia, when you said, there is that choice that we make before we even come into the lifetime, when we are choosing that blueprint, that template, template level reality, we are very conscious of what we have come to learn, to do, to experience. But a lot of us forget most of it. And we can come to trust that every single step is actually taking us to a particular direction. And all we need to do is become conscious. We need to become much more conscious of the paths that we are on. And in my work, I use the experiences that my clients are having to allow them to become much more aware of that theme that is truer to their purpose in that particular present moment. Because that neutral space only comes when we have surrendered, when we have released the resistance, the conditioning around different aspects of us, because we are multi-identity, multi-dimensional, complex beings. So that consciousness allows us to choose things quicker, to make decisions quicker, to waste less time, to allow the current to carry us, because we know that that current knows what we need. Trusting that current is so key. So I totally, resonant with using a range of modalities and knowing that anything we are called to, That resistance is calling us to focus on a particular theme. We may need help to do this. We may realize it by our own self, but the resistance is about what do we need to let go in a particular aspect of us, and which modality is calling to us in that present moment to allow us to step into that neutral place, that infinite wisdom within us. So I'd love to know, Claudia, in terms of the patterns that you have seen, because I'd love you to do a reading to give us a message that anyone listening to this will really resonate with. But first of all, just to get a sense of the patterns, some of the patterns that you may have seen in your work that
Mhm.
you are now beginning to realize this particular timeline in this 3D existence is really common. What are the really common patterns that you have seen?
Right. Thank you for the keyword patterns. One of the first things I do in these coachings is to analyze the patterns. Yeah. If you change your patterns, you change your life. So, do I see universal patterns? Yes. Limitational thinking, but limitational belief structures, just limiting ourselves. And then the belief structures, oh, this is for other people. This cannot be so wonderful for me, and limitations. And it can also be ancestral limitations. You know, when we look at family constellations, there are strings and strands coming also through the DNA, which hold us back. And we have to overcome belief structures and DNA structures. And we can, if we understand the patterns which hold us hostage. So, that's one thing. The other is that we give our power away, that we constantly give our power away. Specifically, I do career coaching like Alchemized Career, where I help people get back into their power, into their doctor frame, into their I am this miracle frame. And to do that, we need to first do an analysis. And the first thing I really see is I have to do this. I have to do this to earn money. I have to enslave myself to gain this. And these are cultural beliefs which are really not true. When we are in our own power, we create our universe. We are in the driver's seat. We are not driven anymore. So the first thing, yes, as you said, is to check on the patterns. I let my clients look at the patterns with the two words. What's always happening in your life? What can I never ever have? Always and never ever lead to our subconscious beliefs. And then going into from now on, I allow myself to have this from now on, and give myself permission to have that. Now and allow, now and permission opens the door to the new. Another phrase I use a lot is, I don't have this because sentences. Very good exercise. If I look at my becauses, my storytellings, that's my justification to sit in a small box. And then when I do the opposite, rephrasing it and say, I have this because, then spirit can come in and give me these solutions. As you were saying, this beautiful flow, this beautiful vacuum, this solutions enters our system, and just like, I have this because I did this, I changed that. And all of a sudden it feels good. And all of a sudden a positive vision is born. And all of a sudden a positive feeling is born, because it feels good to be in the bigger frame. It feels good to be in the bigger box. It's good to feel in that new life. And it doesn't feel preposterous anymore. And it doesn't feel guilt-stricken anymore. It feels good. So the patterns I'm seeing right now is that people want to go back to align with their soul. That's why I name my process Soul Alignment, sessions, or soul aligned love, the partner which really fits, which is connected to their soul. People call about soulmates and soul this and twin flames, but that might all be good. But what about this particular life? A perfect partner, perfectly soul aligned partner is not necessarily the soulmate. because the soulmate can kick us quite in the butt. So what is soul aligned? What is a soul aligned career for us? What are the belief structures I have around career? What are belief structures I have around money? Do I have to slave for it, or can it come naturally to me, freely in the flow of wisdom? So the need for being soul aligned seems to be a pattern which is arising these days strongly as we are on our awakening path back to soul and to our, as you said, blueprint, and to be conscious about that. And soul will tick on your consciousness and knock on your door of consciousness and say, you're not happy here. You're not satisfied here. What are you doing? So oftentimes when we're asking ourselves, what am I doing? Why am I slaving for that money that hard? Where's the joy in that? Or why do I feel safer not having a partner than having a partner? Because oftentimes when we want a relationship so bad, but we don't have one, there's a reason for it. The reason is that we feel safer and more secure without that. Yeah, we have a wishful thinking about wanting a partner, but we don't allow it because there's a reason, there's a story behind it. So the willingness these days to really look at that which hinders the bigger picture, the bigger concept, the bigger story for our living is crumbling slowly down. That means I'm seeing people who are more willing to really shift and change, where the resistance gets smaller. That seems to be a pattern these days. So there is more momentum to get to a higher vibration rate than it was 10 years ago. My spirit guides were saying that between 20 and 30, there's a major shift going on. 20 was the first year of needing to look at our emotions and our own intuition. So to reconnect with our intuitive selves, but also seeing like what's going on in the emotional world. That was 2020. I mean, there were a lot of shock experiences. And then 21 was me and my emotions about all this, me and my intuition. 22 was mastering them. 23, shifting them. 24, getting new inspiration. 25, this is this year, communicating with our inner self and outer self, looking at our inner communication. What do we want? What do we communicate to the world? Even thought patterns. What do we communicate to the outer world through our thoughts? Remember, thought creates reality. Yeah, every thought has a frequency, and that creates reality. Thought creates form. And then next year, I'm excited about next year. Next year is all about love frequency. What do we love? The universe will support anything we love even more. Yeah, whether you want more romantic love, or loving your job more, or loving your spouse more, or loving yourself more, anything which has to do with the frequency of love will be more supported by the universe. But there's the kicker. We need to know what we want, and we can manifest faster. But to manifesting faster, we need to have a vision. So I would recommend for you to do not just a vision board, to a manifestation folder, my life folder, and have chapters in that ring binder or folder. One is about romantic relationships. One is about new talents. One is about career options. One is about travel. And then take pictures like from magazines and write underneath how you want to feel when you have that. Again, the feelings and emotions are the rocket fuel in our life. That's what makes our visions come true. If we feel shrinking like, oh, we are not good enough, then it's not happening. But if we feel this is an option to have this or feel that romantic relationship, the goodness in that relationship, or to be the boss in your career and feel like the boss in your career and in surrounding while you're going to work every single day, and you feel how good that feels, then it's going to happen. So a picture and underneath writing how you feel when that's happening. I'll give you an example. You take out the picture of two people walking the beaches in Hawaii, and you write, me and my partner. but you don't specify it. It could be you and your partner before walking the beaches of Hawaii before you split, right? So you would rather write, me and my partner walking the beaches of Hawaii, and we feel so enchanted with each other. We have such a good time talking at the beach. We feel so relaxed and so romantically involved. We just cannot keep our hands off each other, whatever it might be, but something positive, something you look forward to when it really, truly happens. But in the moment you think about it, it's already happening in one reality. And that reality can come from the vision part into the 3D part. And that's how manifestation works.
Thank you, Claudia. It's always interesting when we talk about love. It is such a word that has multitudes of definitions. And the pure love is that love from the divine. But the conditional love, because love in the human form is conditional. There is no other way it could be. There is no other way the human form can experience love other than that conditional love. The only unconditional love that we can experience is from the divine. And so coming to understand, coming to define what that love is, what love is to us, is so important. This is why I wrote Daily Soul Bytes. Daily Soul Bytes I wrote in 2020, now published by Abimbola Press, a division of A House. And it's really talking about the different perspectives of 31 different nuggets, different soul bites, I call them. Because for every single thing, whether it's joy, whether it's driving, whether it's cooking, we will know within us that when we become conscious, we will know that there is a negative perspective about that thing, or there is also a positive perspective about it. And once we become much more aware, self-awareness is key. Once we become aware of which perspectives we are holding, we can choose to align to the perspective of love, of power, of encouragement, of generosity, of kindness, of compassion. Or if we feel we need to show some recognition of the kind of lower frequency perspectives of survival, of fear, of condemnation, of judgment, we can see it and we can really hold space for it with compassion. But we do not need to live there. We do not need to dwell there for too long, unless we choose to, because we are empowered beings and we will do what we are led to do. So becoming aware and becoming mindful of what we're aligning to allows us to understand our definition of love and to experience higher and higher frequencies in more abundance in our day-to-day. So I do just want to talk about that love. And I also want to ask you, Claudia, this fear that we all have, there's no one that comes to a place in this lifetime that we stop experiencing some degree of fear in our different roles. I am a caregiver. My son has special needs, complex needs. So there's always something going on, and there will be some trigger that comes up. And this happens to every single one of us. How do we manage these triggers? I'd love you to share with us, Claudia. Before we look at the tarot, you will give us a message. How do we, no matter what timelines we jump into, how do we work a lot more with really this energy of fear? How do you do this with your clients in your work?
I had a good discussion with some business people today, and they were talking about fear through holding capacity. Like, let's say if you want to be, having your freedom number, your monthly freedom number, whatever that is. Let's say it's $5,000 or $20,000. What is the freedom like? Oh, I'm not depending on money anymore. I'm sovereign, as I know I'm provided for, and so on. The fear of not having enough is very predominant in many of us. And then we look at that fear like, what's the worst good could happen? What is that? What's that? What's that? What's that? And then realizing, wow, but right now I'm safe. So why worry when I am really safe? Because worry shrinks. Fear shrinks your energy. But this visionary process creates expansion, creates possibility thinking. So I train my folks in possibility thinking. Yeah? What are the odds? What are the possibilities that that horrible thing happens? But what also the odds are that improvement can happen? What are the odds that this horrible thing doesn't end up being that way? Um, so a lot of people have fear of dying. As a medium, I deal with that daily. Like people knock on my door, want to have a medium reading, and then they ask, well, how was that for my loved one to pass? And as I'm conscious soul empath, meaning I can feel how they died, going back into the timeline. And I can say, yeah, this feeling of suffocation wasn't very pleasant, but it lasted not as long as you think because the spirit was already out of the body while the body went through its dealings, but the spirit was already free. That's often what happens. So, what do we do with fear is laying out the odds first, letting it be, asking where it's coming from, remedying the root cause where it's coming from, like through the emotional release technique, for example, to see where is the foundation, where's the hook in that fear, when did I start that fear, when it was created for the first time? Because children, when we're born, we are not born with that fear. We accumulate these fears over time. Yeah, through parental situation, life circumstances, whatnot. But a person born is not really born with fear, it's born in trust. So when we go back to the parameters, when these fears were first created, then we can eliminate that imprint and balance it out to an alternative reality and go and flow with that reality. And the fascinating part is when we have done that, the cellular memory. Look, our body changes every 7 years. Nevertheless, we have scars. That means cells give information, old cells give information to new cells. That means our cellular memory bank, even though we are changing our body, we age. We have certain things happening to us, and certain things get worse and worse and worse. But we can rejuvenate, we can recalibrate, we can balance. And that's done when we work with the future and the past and bringing it together in the now. So by looking in the future, what created the drama, and by looking in the outcome after we have eliminated and balanced that drama zone, that imprint, we can see how are you going to feel in the future, 5 years from today, 10 years from today, or even 6 months from today about that scenario we are so fearful about. Is it really an issue? Did it ever become an issue? And when we tune into the future, we can give a symbol to this positivity future where it's not an issue anymore, and anchoring it, energizing it in us so that this original imprint of fear is replaced by the positivity of the actual highest future possible. And with that, we're living from the now, always on the highest path. That's how I deal with fears with my clients. I hope that answers the question.
That is beautiful. And honestly, fear is something that we see it in a multitude of ways. And sometimes we think our hearts have to be beating very fast in order for us to be experiencing what is not love. And I remember reading about the placebo effect and the nocebo effect. Because the placebo effect, this is about the power of our beliefs, the triggers that come up. How do we recognize the difference in frequencies? Because sometimes that fear is not only about the inflammation or about the escalated heartbeats. Sometimes it's very subtle. This placebo or nocebo effect, I remember reading about it many years ago. The placebo where when you believe something is possible, you actually come to experience it. And a lot of research has been done about how lots of people who were, they were given a diagnosis that was going to be life ending. But because they had some kind of belief that something else would work. They actually healed themselves. They actually were able to transcend that limitation based on the positive belief that they had, which was empowering, which was around love. Only love empowers. You're very right, Claudia. I totally believe what Claudia has said about love being the only thing that empowers. There's also the nocebo effect, which is whereby when, we're believing that something that is negative is affecting us or is going to affect us, even though that thing doesn't exist, even though that thing is not real. There are lots of research and stories about, for instance, I remember one about this man being on a ship, and he had the environment had been cold. They had been locked in a freezer, and the freezer was not going to be open till the very next day or something, or a couple of days or some time afterwards, because the ship was traveling a long distance. And this man had thought that he was going, he was in this freezer and he was definitely going to freeze to death. Not knowing that that freezer had actually been shut down, that actually turned it off. But because he believed he was in a freezer, he actually froze to death, even though the degrees, the temperature in that freezer was over 60 degrees. So he was actually very warm, but because he believed that he was cold, he was in a cold freezer, he actually froze to death. But that's an interesting thing, how powerful our beliefs actually are. And the fear that is underlying that feeling of hopelessness, that feeling of not being able to do anything about the circumstances we are in, actually is something that, can be very vivid, can also be very subtle. So being very aware of what we're aligning to, if it's a negative or a disempowering or non life-giving thought, we're actually able to pause and align ourselves to a much more empowering, less fearful, more loving place. So I do want to just align to what Claudia has said about love and fear, and how we can really come to align ourselves to those perspectives, to those things that will allow us to live our best lives. And I wonder if you are ready, Claudia, to give us a message. These are about possibilities, because in
Exactly.
2026, we'll be looking at what are the different possibilities that are calling to me, and what do I want to align to? What am I feeling called to? So I'd love you to share with us some of the readings or messages that come through to you using your any modality that you feel called to use at this time.
From what I perceived, or what I was given specifically for 2026, is the realignment with the builder energy. And the builder energy is the energy of light we were before we came into physical form. That endlessness, that infinity energy, that source energy. And they call it the builder energy. And this builder energy is the source of everything, meaning it is important for us to understand that everything is possible. And very similar to what Bola was saying, you can choose which path you go, whether you go up or go down, whether your frequency goes up or goes down. But one thing is for sure, you need to take responsibility for your reality. It's what you authentically believe that is what is going to happen. So examine your belief structures, examine your storylines, examine what is your platform in which you stand, and then create yourself the vision where you would like to be. And we help you to build that vision and bring it into fluidity. And for that, we tell you, think big, think big, think out of your comfort zone, be out of your comfort zone, feel out of your comfort zone. And out of the comfort zone means there can be negative excitement and there can be positive excitement. See life as a positive adventure rather than a negative survival war zone. Expect positive. And how can you do that? A lot of you do already gratefulness practice, but another one would be to practice a feeling and making that feeling a target. For example, by saying, today I feel peace. And when you do it as a statement early in the morning and you repeat it over and over, you will realize that your reality aligns to that statement. I feel peaceful today. Wow, I feel more peaceful than yesterday because I declared I feel peace, or I feel love, or I feel abundant, or feel connected to all there is, or I feel brilliant, whatever it might be, but feel it for a moment in the morning and make that statement today. I feel this. And then revisit that thought, revisit that feel. And you will realize that automatically it will align into your day. It will calibrate your day just by the simple, intentional statement. And know this, no challenge is there to punish you, but to make you more brilliant. You are born a diamond. A diamond is beautiful and shimmering, but it doesn't have as much brilliance as a faceted diamond. Faceting is done by abrasion, like the abrasive moments you have in your life. These abrasive moments are the faceting process which make you as a brilliant diamond more brilliant. So ultimately, all these difficulties bring out your inner brilliance. And as you are bringing out your inner brilliance, that's the brilliance which represents source, the divine. So the divine doesn't punish you by bringing on abrasive moments. So embrace some of these embracing moments, saying to yourself that this is happening so that when I'm through this process of abrasion, I'm being even more brilliant in the end. And yes, you are a true, brilliant person. Each one of the listeners, we are all on this journey to becoming a little bit more brilliant each day, with a little bit of abrasive moments each day. But ultimately, to support and to let our light shine more brightly by the end of the day and the next day.
Thank you so much. Could you tell us the beings that you channel? Could you tell us the beings that give you that message?
There's so many. Through my life, I've been trained by Socrates, who gave me the right wording. I have been trained by some beings, Lyrian beings, Pleiadian beings, Council of Light, but ultimately it's all Source. Source is the zero, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. And everything, Source flows through everything. So ultimately, I would say it comes through, Source comes through. And sometimes it takes different facets, different shades, like a kaleidoscope. Sometimes it's more in the voice of the Elohim. Sometimes it's more of the voice of dolphins. Sometimes it's more the voice of Mahadeva, one of the builder energies, directly emanating from source, creating universes, creating realities, even helping us to remember that we create our own reality. So it's not just one entity, it's a multitude of beings. And it's always so exciting for me to see what the day brings and what being wants to work with me, with the individual I'm dealing with and working with. So, for example, when I deal with people who are on a spiritual development path, they're higher frequency beings than when I work on an alchemized career path. They're beings who want to work with getting ahead, or the I am, who I am in correlation to that work environment. Or when I work with healing work, I have a team of doctors who were here, like Paracelsus, who helps me to create X-ray vision to see what's wrong with a patient or what's wrong with a client. So it really depends. It's a kaleidoscope. That's the best way. I have a kaleidoscope of beings, all the way from source to little fairies, everything in between. Life is so rich. And that's my wish for everyone, to realize that life can be so rich if you open up to it and if you let life flow through you.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for your message. And I totally agree with you, Claudia. There has definitely got to be an openness to embracing the multitudes of spiritual support, just like we have a lot of friends around us. I have this angel around me that reminds me, the little angel, and it says, friends are God's way of reminding you that God is looking after you. And really, this is something about having physical friends as well as spiritual friends. We are never alone. I surround myself with things that remind me that I'm not alone. So I do thank you for that, Claudia. Do you have any final words for us today before we go?
I would say the people who had very sad events recently, like loved ones dying, a lot of elderly people died just before Christmas, or who had other losses or lost their jobs. I had some clients who just lost their jobs and feeling despair right before the holidays. It said, keep your faith. Keep your faith that this is not a punishment. Keep your faith that your loved ones are in a better place. Keep your faith that the new job will be even better. Keep your faith that there's a bigger, better possibility out there, and that this is not the end. This is just the beginning of something new. Next year is, numerology-wise, a year of new beginnings. And that's paired up with love. So open yourself up to the new beginning, to the new day, the new month, the new year, and just know that every day is full of possibilities and newness. The sadness of yesterday doesn't have to define the beauty of today or the exhilaration of possibilities for tomorrow. So openness, I would say, is the biggest message today. Be open for the new. Be open for the other. And for the ones of you who have already a glorious life, expansion. Expand on it. Share it. Expand it through sharing. Like you, Bola, share your wisdom. I love your wisdom and your book, and you share it. So sharing wisdom is so precious, and that creates hope, and that creates a higher vibration. And so sharing positivity with one another in our daily exchange is so wonderful. And just, I love it. And I love your show. And so thank you for having me on your show, that I could share my wisdom as you shared your wisdom today too. And I love your wisdom. You're full of wisdom, and I love your vibration rate. So I'm sure you're loved by many who listen to your daily Soul Bites, because it's so valuable in everyday life to be reminded. The soul is in charge.
Thank you, Claudia. I love that. That this is going to be broadcasted in 2026. So this message, whenever you listen to it, this is Claudia talking about 2026, embracing the new. Really, that year, 2026 is that year of love, expanding into love. So I do want to, just say that for whenever you listen to this, in whatever timeline, you're expanding into love. You're expanding into something new, brighter and bigger. And where can people find you when they want to connect with you, Claudia?
Well, there are several websites. One is claudiagranger.com. One is alchemizedcareer.com for the ones who want to recalibrate their career and be more empowered and not give their power away. And then I have the soul-aligned-love.com website, which is brand new. I'm still working on it, where I'm featuring the course so that we can align with our perfect partner. So having soul-aligned love. So these three websites, and of course, Instagram, one Claudia Granger or Alchemized Career. There's TikTok, something going on, but that's just new too. Ultimately the websites would be the safest way, or even just put Claudia Granger Psychic in your browser, and I'm sure you'll find some stuff, and you'll find some TV shows, haunting shows, or whatever. There is a lot out there, so just check it out.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for joining me today, Claudia.
And thank you for being such a gracious host. I really love the show. Thank you.
Thanks, Claudia. And I do want to thank our audience for being with us today and to remind you to subscribe, to share, to like. We do appreciate this. And this is what we are about. It's really about growing that community of those who are keen to stay aligned to love, stay aligned to that enlightened path. This is what we are wanting to expand. So I do look forward to connecting with you again on the next episode of the Daily Soul Bytes Show. Bye bye.